Yes, this is the same shirt I was wearing in my other video. This is the review for the second episode of Primal's second season. I think it's called The Plague of Madness. This was a good episode, infinitely better than last episode. Last episode was bad, it just wasn't good. This episode was great and I loved it. It's still not on par with what I'm hoping for. It met my expectations, it did not go above them, as episodes 4 and 5 did, but I do have something to say about that I'm excited about, more excited actually than to talk about this episode. But I'm going to talk about this episode. So, like I said, I had very high expectations, and no, I wasn't always a cynical asshole. That just came with age. But I do have expectations for things. And they vary based on what it is. When it comes to Genndy Tartakovsky, my expectations are very high. And I'm very happy to say that he met my expectations with this episode. I just wish he had gone past them a bit. Okay, so the episode opens with a herd of brontosauruses or brachiosauruses. Don't know the long-necked dinosaurs that well to read their anatomies. They have like a horn thing, so I think they're brachiosauruses, but Genndy also just doesn't know dinosaurs. He knows what they look like. He doesn't really know their names either, because he called the horned dinosaurs in the first episode T-Rexes when they're clearly based off the Allosaurs. I enjoyed learning things as a kid, and I really enjoyed dinosaurs as a kid. That's why I know that. With the opening, you might even mistake this show for a children's show, but oh, do not be fooled, because here comes the dinosaur with the fan. It's a generic kind of a raptor body, you know, the 2 hind legs, the arms up like that, mouth. It has a big fan right here on its snout. I know it starts with a P, its name. I think it has an H after that, and I can't remember what it's called. I used to know it. I believe it's some kind of herbivore. But one of those comes out of the bush, and it's just covered in this green, its body's green, and it's clearly infected by some kind of a disease, a plague. It's violent, it's rotting, it's got pustules, its body is falling apart while it's running around rapidly. And it runs up to one of the long-necked dinosaurs. I'm just going to call it a Brachiosaurus, because that's what I think it is. Runs up to one of them and bites it in the leg. And it goes and kicks it and breaks its shit, and it fucking dies. And clearly now this thing is infected, so that's obvious. It goes and starts drinking water, and we kind of get a time skip, and now the Brachiosaurus is all green and rotted and shit. And clearly this is a zombie virus, kind of, not in your classic take. It's more like a 28 Days Later, Last of Us type of a zombie thing. But it's not exactly a zombie either, because it doesn't bite to infect, it just attacks and lashes out violently to kill. And I don't know how I feel about that. I know what he's going for. I am very well versed in diseases, especially with animals. This is based on a bunch of things. There's a brain parasite that elk and moose and stuff can get in their brain that just turns them into a kind of walking zombie that just until it rots and dies. It's kind of a puppet. The Last of Us is based off of a fungus that ants can get in South America, I believe, that kind of turns them into a zombie, infects them, and uses them as a host to infect more things. It's also heavily based off of mad cow disease, I think. The idea of an herbivore kind of becoming a carnivorous beast. There's all kinds of diseases, rabies, all kinds of diseases in the animal world that can cause similar symptoms. This kind of just takes them all and mashes them all together. The way it makes their bodies rot and turn green and exposes their muscle has their vertebrae sticking out of their back is also, it seems inspired by all kinds of things. The spine sticking out of the back kind of reminds me of Abomination from the Incredible Hulk. But the way their bodies rot and their bones get exposed reminds me of Heavy Metal, the 1980s movie. In the middle of the movie, you get this scene with the B-17. As a bomber in World War II, and the Lochinvar, the kind of antagonistic force of the movie. It's this green orb with the unlimited power, smashes into the B-17, and the people on board who die end up getting charged with its power, and they turn into these skeletal zombies. Their flesh falls off of their body mostly, and they're zombie skeletons moving around. It seemed very, it could be a reference on that. I don't know Genndy's history with animation. I don't know if he's seen Heavy Metal, but I would hazard a guess and say that he has. If that wasn't an intentional inspiration, I would say it was a subconscious one. Give me a minute, I just talked a lot. I have a lot of notes on this. So yes, this disease is very cruel. It turns a peaceful herbivore into this rabid beast running around. It attacks and it kills all these other brachiosauruses very violently, very cruelly. It's very visceral. There's lots of more pustules, and it's rotting, and it's biting them and smashing them, and stomps one on the ground, and it's fucking guts and shit are flying out. It's it wasn't biting, like I said, it wasn't eating them or biting them or even trying to spread the infection. It was just violent and cruel. The gore gets up to episode 5 levels of just stupid over the top shit. It's just fucking crazy. And it's just biting and biting their necks. It smacks one into a spiked tree. Its only goal, seemingly, is just to kill everything around it. Like I said, I've seen this type of idea done before. This is all over the place. This is a very popular idea. This is a very unique execution, I would say. Just really over the top gore fest. And then it stops, and here comes Fang and Spear. Fang's still in the story. I don't like Fang. I've already talked about that. So they're walking around looking at the carnage, like, holy shit. And then the Brachiosaurus went to sleep, I guess, and seemingly wakes up, and it starts chasing them and attacking at them. They're running through trees. It's busting through trees, chasing them. Spear lost his spear. I thought it might be an animation error, but no, he never got a spear back. So I guess you're gonna have to fashion him a new one. Very curious what the idea of this was. This disease that doesn't resurrect the dead. Like I said, it's not a zombie disease. Is it a bacteria? Is it a parasite? Is it a fungus? Is it a... What is it? Is it a virus? I don't know. It's based on all kinds of things, so no matter what it runs into, this thing just keeps chasing them to the point of exhaustion and death. Its body's clearly not its own. It doesn't care what happens to it. They end up sliding down a mountain. It slides down the mountain and misses them and lands down on its back, and it gets up and starts smacking its head against rocks and shit, and it's just lashing out violently until it finally exhausts itself and seemingly dies. And then we have a commercial break. That was the first half of the episode, and I thought the first half was fantastic, and I started thinking in my head of predictions of what the second half of the episode would hold. And the second half, unfortunately, did not live up to the expectation. Well, it wasn't as good as the first half, is what I'll say. Because my predictions started kind of ringing out, and it started following a very predictable and formulaic path, unfortunately. So we come back in, and the thing is screaming again. I actually thought for a second it was Fang. And it's chasing a spear, and this is an obvious dream sequence. There's nothing in the background. He gets bit, and he's like, oh fuck, and his body starts rotting, his hands start rotting, and his face rots, and then Fang gets bit, and it's an obvious dream sequence. I don't know if it was meant to be obvious. It's not necessarily criticism, but it was an obvious dream sequence, and if the idea was that maybe you're gonna think, oh shit, they got bit, it didn't accomplish that. I'm gonna assume it was an obvious dream sequence, because that's what it was, an obvious dream sequence, and I'm not gonna take that away from Genndy. Interesting, gory, nothing really to say about that. Spear wakes up, they start coming down the mountain, and I started thinking, like, surely Genndy isn't gonna wake this thing back up. Surely there will be some new thing with the disease chasing them. I started thinking it would be interesting if birds came down and started eating it. You know, we saw those vultures in the last episode. Obviously, he wouldn't do that likely, because then if birds get the disease, it's going to spread everywhere and it'll never stop. He likely wanted it to die here. And so I knew what was going to happen. I was just hoping he wouldn't do it, and then he did it. The creature refuses to die, and it gets up. Very predictably gets up and starts chasing them through this tight crevice. I'm going to scroll so I don't have to keep finding my place. Starts chasing them through this tight crevice that's smashing itself against the sides of the stones. At this point I'm thinking its legs could barely hold it when it fell down earlier and seemingly died. It can't keep going. They fell asleep and then woke up. They must have been asleep for at least 8 hours. Its body would have continued to decompose and rot. What is keeping it going? It isn't a matter of whether or not the disease is pushing it to the point of death. Its body can't support it. So I was definitely losing interest with this. You know, it was smashing itself into the walls, and it didn't seem to be losing any momentum. Predictably, since they're in a tight space, it gets stuck and starts snapping at them and stuff, and they start walking away from it. There's these lava geysers, very weird. Didn't know exactly where it was gonna go. I knew the Brachiosaurus was gonna, I assumed it was gonna tear itself in half to get out and start like crawling after them, and they would leave it to die maybe. But then they started moving backwards, and I started thinking, well, it's gonna get out, but what's gonna happen? And predictably it does. It doesn't rip itself in half. It tears some of its skin off, just more gory. It's very over the top. The geysers turn out to be a volcano. There's cracks forming, so you know the volcano's about to explode or something. It starts chasing them over the volcano. Again, the volcano's cracking, so it just smashes through the rocks and falls in, and they're now floating on a rock. Very Samurai Jack over the top sequence. It starts fucking swimming up out of the lava to chase them, and it's just like, oh fuck, Genndy, just let it die. God damn. Are you trying to make people feel sympathy for it? It's a wild beast. It likely doesn't feel pain at this point. Just let it die. This is going on too long. It's the same thing chasing them. It's lost its touch at this point. It could carry the first 15 minutes. After that, this Brachiosaurus zombie thing is not scary anymore. It's just kind of boring. It's lost its touch. It keeps going under and popping out of the lava, chasing them until finally they get to the end. And they climb up out of the volcano and they turn around and they watch as it just fucking is dying in the lava, and Spear is staring at it. It's longingly, like he says, feels sad for it, and it's weird. He's a caveman. He shouldn't feel sad for this beast that, from his primal perspective, would be thinking, you know, oh, this thing tried to kill me. Seems quite knowledgeable, knowing it has a disease, and if you get bit, you turn into it, even though he didn't see that happen. Very weird. It seemed like some... if there's a message, I think it's a cruelty of nature message or something. I'm not really sure. Like, man, diseases in nature can be cruel and fucking suck, or something, I don't know. So, yeah, like I said, it was a great first half, very predictable, disappointing second half. Overall, it was a very good episode, I thought. Just because I didn't like the second half doesn't mean it wasn't a good episode. That first half is easily better than the entirety of the last episode, fucking, in my opinion. So yeah, if he could have found something to take the disease away from the Brachiosaurus of the second half and continue the chase, I think it would have been a lot better. I would have been more invested. Just seeing this thing push itself to death, I get what he's going for, but it's just not that interesting. At a certain point, you've seen what it can do. He blew everything it could do in the first 5 minutes. And then we get the preview for the next episode, and this was fantastic. This is exactly what I'm looking for from Genndy. He's got fucking these orgasmic colors and art, and this is fucking weird wizard monkey man with antlers is flying on this fucking pterodactyl, and this other weird wizard monkey man is looking at it with a staff. And the fucking pterodactyl lands on a mountain, and we're walking down over a ritual, and something's chained up, and they're performing a crazy magic ritual, and this is what I'm looking for from him. This is the weird, crazy shit you would see in fucking Samurai Jack. This is what I want to see from Genndy. This is episode 4, episode 5 levels of just crazy, what the fuck is happening? This is exactly why I want to watch this fucking show. I have the highest of expectations for him on this next episode, and I fully expect him to surpass them. I'm super excited for this next episode. So, that's it for this review. Again, this is a very good episode. Still not, it wasn't what I hoped for. It was what I expected, which is very good. Just, I don't know, it's not an episode I would personally go back to rewatch. I might rewatch the first half and then just shut it off, because the second half, like I said, it doesn't have anything really there. I think he's trying to make you feel sympathy for the animal, and I'm just not that kind of person. I don't feel sympathy for stuff usually like that. You know, if I see an elk walking in circles and know it has a brain worm, I might feel sympathy, but this Brachiosaurus thing, not for me. But yeah, good episode. Have high hopes for the next one.